Hello dear students, I welcome you to this important lecture on gender sensitivity and social justice, a subject that explores the complex challenges related to gender equality and social justice. This lecture offers a comprehensive perspective on the concept of gender equality and the issues relating to gender equality and social justice. Since the origin of human civilization, the blending of male and female was considered to be the most important requirement for the proliferation and development of universal visions. While understanding the strength of any culture and to recognize the value of its excellence, much importance is to be given to study the position and condition of women in the society. Dear students, in this session, our focus will be on building a clear understanding of key ideas that shape a fair and inclusive society. Now, let us have the look on some of the objectives that will be covered in this session. First, moving beyond biological differences to examine how social roles, expectations, and identities are formed. Second objective will be to discuss why awareness, respect, and fairness are essential in addressing inequality and discrimination. The third objective for today's session will be to understand how fairness in opportunities and resources helps overcome long-standing disadvantages faced by different genders. The next objective will be emphasizing their universality and the importance of protecting the dignity and rights of every individual without bias. The last objective will be focusing on how teaching, learning, and awareness can bring about positive social change. Dear students, let us start with the concept of gender. Gender is not limited to biological differences. It includes the social norms and expectations placed on individuals. These expectations create gender roles, the patterns of behavior that society considers appropriate for men, women, and other gender identities. Although these roles may seem natural, they are learned through socialization and can be challenged or changed. Gender is the way societies label people as male, female, or other categories, plus the expectations that come with those labels. It's not just biology, it's a blend of identity, expression, roles, and norms. Identity means how you feel inside and the label you choose, which includes man, women, no binary, gender fluid, etc. Whereas expression means how you present yourself through clothes, mannerism, speech, etc. And by roles and norms is meant the cultural script that says men do this, women do that, which shifts across cultures and eras. Gender refers to the way societies classify people as male, female, or beyond these categories, along with the roles, behaviors, and expectations attached to those classifications. It's a complex concept that extends far beyond the simple male-female label recorded on birth certificates. Gender can be understood as a lens through which individuals perceive themselves, express their identities, and are perceived and treated by society. This lens shapes personal experiences, social interactions, and opportunities across the life course. To understand gender more clearly, it's helpful to look at its key dimensions. First is biological sex, which refers to the physical characteristics such as chromosomes, hormones, and reproductive anatomy that individuals are born with, including XX, XY, or other variations. Biological sex represents the biological foundation, but it does not determine the full experience of gender. Second is gender identity, which refers to a person's deeply felt internal sense of who they are. For many individuals, this identity aligns with the sex assigned at birth and they identify as transgender. For others, Their gender identity differs and they may identify as transgender, non-binary, gender fluid, or in other ways. This inner sense of identity is personal and fundamental to one's sense of self. Third is gender expression, which refers to how individuals communicate their gender outwardly through clothing, hairstyle, voice, behavior, and body language. Gender expression may or may not conform to traditional expectations. For example, a person may identify as a woman while choosing attire or expressions traditionally labeled as masculine, or they may comfortably blend different styles. Fourth are social roles and expectations. Every society creates norms about how men and women are expected to behave, including expectations related to careers, family responsibilities, and communication styles. These norms are not fixed. They change over time and vary across cultures, meaning what is considered feminine or masculine in one context may be neutral in another. Finally, gender must be understood through the lens of intersectionality. Gender does not exist in isolation but intersects with caste, class, religion, race, ability, and sexuality, shaping unique experiences of privilege and discrimination. Understanding gender in this broader and more inclusive way allows societies to challenge stereotypes, develop inclusive policies, and create environments where individuals are respected, valued, and recognized for who they truly are. Now, coming to second objective of this session, which focuses on gender sensitivity and social justice. Gender sensitivity refers to the ability to understand, respect, and value the diverse experiences of all genders. A gender-sensitive individual avoids stereotypes, questions inequality, and actively promotes fairness in everyday interactions. It involves noticing how gender shapes experiences, language, opportunities, and access to power. Gender sensitivity is not merely a catchphrase. It's a daily habit of reflection and responsible action. When we discuss gender sensitivity, we focus on two important levels. The first is the personal level, which relates to how we think, speak, and behave. This includes using inclusive language, such as replacing terms like guys with team, everyone, or colleagues. It also involves avoiding assumptions about roles or abilities based on gender and being attentive to micro behaviors such as interruptions or subtle forms of benevolent sexism. The second level is the systemic level, which includes social structures, institutions, and policies that sustain inequality. Examples include persistent gender pay gaps despite equal qualifications, unequal representation of women in leadership roles, especially in technology and corporate boardrooms, and policy gaps related to parental leave, affordable childcare, and protection for gender non-conforming individuals. Addressing both levels is essential. Dear students, when gender roles are questioned, equity is practiced, and human rights are protected, society moves towards true social justice. Social justice refers to the ongoing effort to build a fairer society where every individual has an equal chance to thrive regardless of background, identity, or circumstance. It focuses on identifying systemic imbalances rooted in caste, class, gender, religion, ability, or other social markers and taking deliberate action to correct them. At its core, social justice seeks to ensure equal access to opportunities, rights, and resources for all members of society. One key principle of social justice is equity over equality. This means recognizing that people start from unequal positions and may need different kinds of support to achieve genuinely fair outcomes. Another principle is the protection of rights and dignity, including access to education, healthcare, safe working conditions, and meaningful political participation. Social justice also emphasizes inclusive policies that actively remove discriminatory barriers and offer explicit protections to marginalized communities. Active allyship is another dimension. Social justice calls on individuals and institutions not to remain neutral, but to use privilege responsibly by amplifying silenced voices, challenging bias, and supporting collective movements for change. Importantly, most injustice is structural rather than individual. Inequality is often embedded in laws, institutions, and everyday practices such as caste-based exclusion, gender pay gaps, or development models that neglect rural communities. Finally, social justice must be understood through intersectionality. People experience overlapping forms of discrimination based on multiple identities. In practice, social justice shows up in things like affirmative action programs, land reform initiatives, accessible public transport, and campaigns against hate speech. It's a continuous dialogue, not a one-off fix. Now, let us try to understand the role of gender sensitivity in achieving social justice. Gender sensitivity is a practical engine that drives social justice work forward. When we start noticing how gender shapes everyday interactions, policies, and power structures, we uncover the hidden mechanisms that keep inequality in place. Gender sensitivity has a vital role, such as it helps identify and correct gender inequalities. It promotes equal access to education and employment. It prevents gender-based violence and harassment. It encourages respect, empathy, and cooperation. It supports inclusive laws and policies. It forces institutions to examine the rules that embed disparity. Intersectionality becomes visible once gender is on the radar, and it cultivates empathy and allyship. In short, gender sensitivity is a core component of any social justice agenda. It uncovers hidden biases, informs equitable policies, and builds the collective will to dismantle the systems that keep inequality alive. At this stage of the session, we shift our attention to the third objective, focusing on the concept of gender equity. Gender equity refers to fairness in treatment for all genders based on their specific needs, realities, and circumstances. While equality means giving everyone the same resources or opportunities, equity goes further by providing appropriate support so that outcomes are genuinely fair. Gender equity recognizes that different genders face different social barriers and disadvantages, and therefore requires different forms of support to achieve equal opportunities. Some key features of gender equity help clarify this idea. It's fairness-based, as it acknowledges structural barriers faced by marginalized genders. It's need-based, because support is designed according to specific requirements rather than uniform distribution. Gender equity is also corrective in nature, as it aims to reduce historical injustice and long-standing disadvantages. Most importantly, it is transformative, enabling equal participation of all genders in public and private spheres. Gender equity is essential across education, employment, healthcare, and other social systems. Its significance can be seen in measures such as scholarships for girls where education is restricted, parental leave policies supporting all parents, inclusive schools for diverse gender identities and equal access to employment. Gender equity reduces discrimination, promotes inclusive growth, strengthens participation and progress. Equity is essential for achieving gender equality in a meaningful and sustainable way. Gender equality, also known as sexual equality or equality of the sexes, is the state of equal ease of access to resources and opportunities, regardless of gender, including economic participation and decision making, and the state of valuing different behaviors, aspirations, and needs equally, also regardless of gender. Gender equity means respecting all people without discrimination, regardless of gender, while actively addressing inequalities that restrict access to health, education, and economic opportunities. It's not simply about treating everyone the same, but about recognizing where the playing field is uneven and correcting it so outcomes are fair. Gender equity ensures that opportunities, resources, and respect are distributed according to need rather than stereotypes. It matters because when schools, workplaces, and policies ignore gender gaps, the same groups remain disadvantaged. Equity levels the field, allowing talent to flourish on merit, improving innovation, morale, social justice, and overall societal progress. Dear students, now let us come to objective number 4, which focuses on the concept of human rights. Human rights are the fundamental freedoms and protections that belong to every person simply because they are human. They are universal, inalienable, and indivisible, meaning they apply to all, cannot be taken away, and are interconnected. These rights include the right to life and liberty, freedom from violence, slavery, and arbitrary detention. They ensure equality before the law, regardless of gender, caste, religion, race, or disability. Human rights also protect dignity, privacy, and personal autonomy, guarantee access to education, healthcare, work, and living standards, and enable participation through free speech, assembly, voting, and cultural life for all people everywhere. When these rights are upheld, societies become more just, stable, and prosperous. When they are ignored, injustice and conflict follow. Human rights provide the moral and legal foundation for movements, laws, and policies that aim to create a fairer world. Human rights, which belong to every individual, regardless of gender, caste, religion, or background. Human rights guarantee dignity, safety, freedom, and equal opportunity. When gender discrimination occurs, human rights are violated. Human rights are the fundamental freedoms that safeguard that belong to every person simply by virtue of being human. Gender sensitivity is the practice of noticing how gender shapes the enjoyment of those rights in daily life. Dear students, together they ensure that universal promises of human rights are actually experienced equally by all genders, such as equal access is a core principle of human rights, ensuring that everyone has fair opportunities for education, employment, and healthcare, while gender sensitivity policies recognize barriers faced by women, men, and non-binary individuals and work actively to remove them. Freedom from discrimination is also a fundamental right, and being gender sensitive means challenging sexist attitudes, addressing pay gaps, and opposing exclusionary practices that restrict fairness. Human rights also guarantee voice and participation, ensuring that all individuals are heard, respected, and encouraged to contribute through inclusive language, supportive environments, and safe spaces. Finally, legal protection requires governments to prevent gender-based abuse, and gender-sensitive laws transform these commitments into real measures such as anti-harassment regulations and parental leave policies that safeguard dignity and equality for everyone. In short, human rights define what? The entitlements we all share, while gender sensitivity provides how? The awareness and actions that turn those rights into real everyday equality. To provide this awareness, education plays a vital role. Dear learners, we now turn into the final objective of this lecture, which focuses on the role of education in gender sensitivity and social justice. Dear students, education is the bridge that turns human rights promises into lived reality, and gender equity is the design of that bridge. When education is delivered with a gender equitable lens, it equips individuals to claim their human rights, participate fully in society, and break cycles of inequality. When schools respect every learner's right to education, they open doors to knowledge, health, and future work. Gender equitable curricula, safe facilities, and bias-free teaching ensure that girls, boys, and non-binary students can attend, stay, and succeed. In practice, this means ensuring equal access by removing tuition fees, offering scholarships, and providing adequate sanitation facilities so that no learner is forced to drop out because of gender. It also involves creating inclusive content through textbooks and learning materials that represent diverse role models and actively avoid stereotypes, allowing every student to see themselves reflected in the curriculum. In addition, it requires building a supportive environment by training teachers to recognize and challenge discrimination, and by establishing clear policies that protect learners from harassment, promote safety, and encourage dignity, respect, and equal participation for all. Education plays a transformative role in promoting gender sensitivity and social justice. Schools and teachers can challenge stereotypes, promote inclusive practices, encourage equal participation, and model respectful behavior. When gender sensitivity is combined with awareness of human rights and equitable practices, it paves the way for social justice, a condition where everyone lives without discrimination and has equal access to resources, opportunities, and respect, and motivates them to participate actively in creating a society where dignity, equality, and justice are accessible to all. Gender sensitivity, gender equity, human rights, and education are tightly woven together. Each thread supports the others, forming a network that can transform societies. First, gender is the social lens through which people view themselves and others. Recognizing it as a construct rather than a fixed fact opens space for change. Second, gender sensitivity acts as a diagnostic. It means noticing how language, policies, and daily interactions can unintentionally favor one gender. In a classroom, a teacher who observes that boys are called on more often or that textbook highlight only male figures is practicing this awareness. Third, gender equity moves beyond equal treatment to allocate resources where they are most needed. Providing menstrual supplies, offering flexible schedules for caregivers, or running mentorship programs for girls in science are concrete equity measures that level the playing field. Fourth, human rights supply the moral and legal foundation. International agreements such as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights affirm that education is a fundamental right, free from discrimination. Equity initiatives are therefore obligations, not optional add-ons. Finally, education is the engine that drives the whole system. Curricula that include diverse role models teach students to question stereotypes, while school policies that embed equity ensure a fair learning environment. Because education shapes attitudes and skills, it turns rights into lived reality. When these elements work together, policy design starts with human rights standards, gender sensitivity, audits pinpoint gaps, and equity targets translate findings into actions like scholarships or teacher training. Implementation involves inclusive language, gender disaggregated monitoring, and community involvement so that parents and leaders understand both rights and the need for fairness. Continuous feedback loops refine the approach, creating a self-reinforcing cycle. Rights give legitimacy, sensitivity provides awareness, equity delivers fairness, and education spreads the change to the next generation. Ignoring any part weakens the whole, allowing bias to persist despite formal commitments. An integrated, interlinked strategy is therefore essential for lasting gender justice in education and beyond. Dear students, in conclusion, challenging rigid gender roles is vital for creating a society that values ability over gender. Gender sensitivity, gender roles, gender equity, and human rights are deeply interconnected concepts. Understanding them helps learners recognize inequality and practice fairness in daily life. A socially just society values every individual equally, and education plays a key role in building awareness, empathy, and critical thinking. So this was all about today's lecture. Hopefully we will meet again in our next session. Till then, goodbye.